The history of dragons. An ancient and enduring tale of mystery, mythology, and power. These creatures have captivated the imagination of humans for thousands of years. From the fire-breathing beasts of ancient myths to the majestic flying serpents of Eastern lore, dragons have become icons of fear, wonder, and fantasy. But where did they come from? What is the truth behind these legendary creatures? Today, we journey through time, exploring the fascinating history of dragons. Chapter 1: Ancient Beginnings. The story of dragons begins in the ancient world. But what were these creatures? Were they real, or just the product of human imagination? One of the earliest known depictions of a dragon can be found in the caves of Europe, dating back thousands of years. Early humans, perhaps inspired by the giant bones of dinosaurs or the fearsome creatures of their time, began to create images of serpentine monsters. These ancient cultures believed in beings of great power, capable of causing destruction or bringing protection. The ancient Near East, dragons were depicted in the form of serpent-like creatures. In Mesopotamia, the Mashusu, a dragon-like beast, appeared in Babylonian mythology. The Mashusu was a symbol of power, often associated with the god Marduk. These early dragons were not necessarily evil, they were protectors of the gods, creatures to be revered. In the East, dragons were seen in a much different light. Chinese dragons, unlike their fire-breathing Western counterparts, were benevolent creatures, symbols of power, wisdom, and good fortune. They were believed to control water, rainfall, and floods. Far from terrifying monsters, these dragons were creatures of reverence, often associated with the emperor himself. Emperors often used the image of the dragon to represent their divine right to rule. The dragon was seen as the guardian of harmony and peace, with its influence extending to both natural and supernatural realms. Chapter 2: The Dragon of Western Legends. But the dragon as we know it today, the one that roams through fantasy stories and fiery realms, has its roots in Western legend and medieval Europe. In the Middle Ages, the image of the dragon shifted dramatically. Dragons became the terrifying monsters of European folklore, fire-breathing beasts that lived in dark caves or beneath mountains, guarding treasures or terrorizing villages. Perhaps the most famous dragon-slaying story comes from the tale of Saint George. The legend tells of George, a Christian knight, who defeated a dragon to save a princess. The dragon symbolized chaos, evil, and the unknown. Defeating it became a metaphor for conquering sin and darkness. The Arthurian legends, too, feature dragons, with King Arthur's own sword, Excalibur, being linked to a dragon's power. In these stories, dragons weren't just monsters, but important symbols of strength and challenges to be overcome. Chapter 3: Dragons in Mythology Around the World. Dragons are not confined to European and Asian cultures. They appear in myths and stories across the globe. In Norse mythology, there's Fafnir, a dwarf who was turned into a dragon after greed consumed him. Fafnir hoarded a vast treasure, guarding it fiercely in his dragon form. But the hero Sigurd, armed with a magical sword, killed the dragon and claimed the treasure. This tale reflects the destructive nature of greed and the triumph of virtue over vice. In Africa, dragons take on different forms as well. The Nyami Nyami, a river god in Zimbabwean folklore, is often depicted as a dragon-like creature with the head of a snake and the body of a fish. The Nyami Nyami was believed to protect the people and their communities, much like the benevolent dragons of the East. In Central America, the Aztecs revered Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. Quetzalcoatl was not only a god of wind and rain but also of wisdom and culture. As a dragon-like deity, Quetzalcoatl bridged the gap between the earthly and divine, showing how dragons in various cultures often represented forces beyond mere physical power. Chapter 4: The Dragon in Modern Times. In modern times, dragons have evolved even further. The image of the dragon has been reinterpreted through literature, film, and popular culture, growing into the fantastical creatures we know today. J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit introduced Smaug, a dragon who hoarded treasure in the Lonely Mountain. Smaug, with his terrifying personality and fiery breath, became the embodiment of greed and destruction. In more recent years, Daenerys Targaryen's dragons in Game of Thrones symbolize power, revenge, and liberation, continuing the dragon's role as a complex, multifaceted creature in modern storytelling. Even in video games, dragons continue to play a central role. From Skyrim to Dungeons & Dragons, these creatures represent both fearsome adversaries and powerful allies, often tied to quests that test the hero's strength, wit, and courage. Chapter 5, The Dragon's Legacy. So, what is it about dragons that has captivated us for so long? Is it their power, their majesty, or their mystery? Dragons appear in so many cultures, representing a common human fascination with strength, mystery, and the unknown. Their legacy is woven into the fabric of our myths, legends, and stories. They are more than just fire-breathing creatures, they symbolize the challenges we face, the mysteries we seek to unravel, and the hopes and fears that have shaped us. Today, dragons continue to inspire. Whether through fantasy novels, blockbuster films, or ancient legends passed down through generations, these mythical creatures remind us that the world is full of wonder and that the greatest adventures often lie just beyond the horizon. 10 mind-blowing facts about dragons. 1. Dragons appear across every continent. Dragons aren't just confined to European or Asian mythology, they show up in cultures all over the world. From the Mishusu of Mesopotamia to the Nyami Nyami in Africa, dragons have been an enduring symbol in countless societies. 2. Dragons were inspired by real creatures. Some believe dragons might have been inspired by real animals. The discovery of dinosaur fossils, large crocodiles, or even Komodo dragons may have led ancient people to create stories about fire-breathing monsters. 3. The first dragon was likely a serpent. In many cultures, early depictions of dragons weren't the giant, winged creatures we see today. The earliest dragons were more snake-like, such as the ancient Mishusu, a dragon-shaped creature from Babylonian mythology, which had the body of a serpent and the head of a lion. 4. Dragons in Chinese mythology are benevolent. Unlike Western dragons, which are often portrayed as malevolent creatures, dragons in Chinese mythology are symbols of power, wisdom, and good fortune. They're believed to bring rain and are considered benevolent beings that guide and protect. 5. Dragons are connected to weather and natural forces. In several cultures, dragons are tied to natural elements. In China, they control the water, while in Norse mythology, dragons are linked to chaos and destruction. Their role as controllers of the weather or guardians of nature is one of their most iconic features. 6. The dragon's fire may be based on ancient volcanoes. The image of dragons spewing fire may have originated from ancient observations of volcanic eruptions. Ancient people might have linked volcanic activity to fire-breathing creatures, seeing them as natural forces of destruction and power. 7. Dragon slaying symbolizes overcoming inner struggles. In many legends, the hero who slays a dragon symbolizes triumph over internal struggles, such as greed, fear, or corruption. A perfect example is the legend of St. George, where slaying the dragon represents overcoming sin and evil. 8. The winged dragon, wyvern, is a Western creation. The iconic winged dragon most people think of today, like the one seen in Game of Thrones or The Hobbit, comes from Western medieval art. The winged dragon, or wyvern, emerged during the Middle Ages, evolving from earlier serpent-like dragons. 9. Dragons were considered guardians of treasures. Dragons in mythology are often depicted as hoarding vast amounts of treasure, guarding it fiercely. This symbolizes the value of wealth or knowledge, as well as the idea that great treasures should be protected by powerful forces. Think of Smaug from The Hobbit or Fafnir in Norse mythology. 10. Dragons could have been the original gods. In several cultures, dragons were revered as deities. In Chinese tradition, the dragon is a symbol of the emperor and divine authority. Similarly, in Mesoamerican cultures, the feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl was both a god and a cultural hero, representing wisdom and creation. The history of dragons is far from over. And perhaps, the next chapter is still being written. By you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more legendary content.